What was meant to be 47 now is 50. Welcome to the Anatomy Crosscast with Dillon from Denver.
Ladies and gentlemen, like, I don't know. Welcome to episode 45 of the Anatomy Podcast. For me, currently, it is 6:49 p.m. over here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It is a pretty cooler night, but I mean, spring is approaching, so as much as I want to deny it, the temperatures are going to steadily get warmer. Boo frickin' who. And then April 17th, like, I'll be driving for almost a day straight back to what is commonly triple digits during the middle of the year over in Arizona. So I'm like, woo! But tonight we have Dillon from Dead Awake jumping on to tell his story, tell his background, and hopefully we can go under the skin of one of Dead Awake's prior releases. They do have a new single coming out next week, and I'm very excited for these guys. They seem to be embarking onto a new chapter, a new sound, and I mean, like they said themselves on their Facebook, it's a lot more like Caveman, just Sam, like Slammy Sam era going on, and I love to see it. So, for starters, Dillon, how are you doing, man?
Hey man, I'm good. Hanging in there, just waiting for some food. But yeah, it's still 50 here. It was like a 47-degree day, so it was really, really like a heat wave out here in Wisco. But yeah, so
Right.
I'm good.
You said you're waiting for KFC, or what was it? Because I heard about a KFC debacle before he started session.
Yeah, so we live like right next door to a KFC, and me and my girlfriend woke up from a nap at like 6:20, and I was like, oh shit, we haven't eaten yet. So I went to the KFC and we were trying to get their wraps because they have like really cool like snack wrap things now. And my girlfriend loves them. So we ordered those and then came back and found out that it was just like the original chicken and the spicy chicken. They didn't give us like the wrap, so it was the wrong order. So like my girlfriend, she's like, I'll just run back. Just hang in there. I'll be right back. So she just like took my car and left. So yep, that's what we're doing. So if you see me kind of look over and I'm like, yay, that's just my girlfriend coming home.
Chicken! No, that's great. Freaking Tokyo Drift theme in the background as she's like
Oh, dude.
speed running over to the KFC around the corner. She's like, I want my wraps, please. That's completely understandable though. And dude, I'm absolutely a chicken guy myself. Have you ever gone to Bojangles by chance?
No, I've actually never heard of it. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's so good. Okay, so you said Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do y'all have Raising Cane's up there? Like, what are your main chicken joints other than KFC?
We do have Canes, and I fucking love Canes. That sauce literally has a special spot in my heart. We have Canes, we have a shit ton of Popeyes, as everywhere does.
Right.
And then probably like Chick-fil-A. But there's this new place, dude. It's called Dave's Hot Chicken, and they like moved old Hardee's was, and everybody's like talking about how good it is. It's like I think they have like maybe 2 or 3 locations, but it's so good. Oh my god, I'm so excited to try it. They have like hot sauce that you have to like sign a waiver to get in your sandwich.
Oh yeah, that's what we're about, man. Hot sauce.
Hell yes.
That shit's good. No, basically, like, I don't know if it's like exclusive to southern states, like deep southeastern American states. I guess that was very specific, but like, you know, the deep south, as they call it. I'm pretty new to it as well, being born and raised in Arizona, but it seems to be like the South's version of Raising Cane's. That's what Bojangles is. It's like really like, I don't even know how to describe it, man. It's like Cane's but better. And I didn't think that that would be a thing because I'm such a fried chicken fan. And I mean, my weight tells me it's like, yep, you definitely are a fried chicken fan. I'm like, shut up. But also, it's like, you know, you got to enjoy food and you only have so much time on this earth. So as long as you're taking care of yourself out there, ladies and gentlemen, eat whatever you want. Just understand that, you know, if you want to be healthy, but you're not eating healthy food, well, that contradicts itself. And I'm definitely going to take my own advice passively. But tonight, after starting the conversation off with chicken, which I think feels more organic. I prefer it that way. Really. We've never really done that before. We usually just stick to a script, a very vague script. But essentially, we will be taking a little chunk out of Dillon's time tonight. We will be talking about his background as a musician, as well as any other professions really that he has attended to in his young adult life so far. And then in the second half, after an ad break, we will be trying to dig in as much as possible comfortably to his participation, his contributions to his band Dead Awake. And they've been around for a little bit. So we got plenty to talk about. We got plenty of material to discuss, maybe even the overall roadmap on how each of the EPs and albums so far were decided, all that fun stuff. But let's go ahead and bring it down to earth, people. Let's bring it down to where Dillon is, which is Wisconsin. Basically, Dillon, let us know where you were born, where you grew up, and anything that you feel would be relevant for your listeners to know, for fans of Dead Awake to know about you personally. You may take as much time as you need.
Cool. So my whole growing up, like where I grew up and everything, is a little bit complicated. I always tell people I can give them the long story, I can give them the Spark Notes version. So I'll just I'll just riff really quick. But I was born in Jacksonville, Florida. I lived there for about 6 months when I was a baby. Then me and my family packed up and we lived in Wausau, Wisconsin. So just a smaller town in Wisconsin here. We lived there for about 5 years. I went to elementary school there. Then we moved to Lamar's, Iowa, which is apparently the ice cream capital of the world, which nobody knows. That's just because like Wells Blue Bunny started there.
Oh.
Yeah, great ice cream. I hate the company, but it's a great ice cream. I'll tell you what. And so I lived there for about like 3 or 4 years. After that, we ended up hightailing it to Visalia, California. So it's kind of like in the Central Valley, right where it kind of bends over.
Yes.
So we're like right smack dab there. Lived there for about 4 years. My dad worked for a company that made housing trusses, and that was around 2008. So once the housing market crashed, we kind of had to really think on our feet and figure out what to do from there. And then we moved to Green Bay, Wisconsin, where I spent the majority of my life. That's usually where I say like I pretty much grew up, just because that's where I went to high school and everything.
Right.
Ooh, chicken's here.
Chicken.
Anyway, so I lived in Green Bay, Wisconsin for a while. I went to high school there. It was from like 8th grade up until I went to college and then some. So I was there for a while, went to UW Oshkosh for a semester, didn't end up liking it, so I came back home. Then my family moved to Cleveland for a few months. So just because like my dad got a different job and everything, and I wanted to kind of do something different, so I went with him. Then we ended up in Poplar Grove, Illinois. So basically like a little suburb of Rockford, kind of like an hour and a half away from Chicago.
Okay.
Lived there for quite a few years. That's where I met the guys. That's where this whole band stuff kind of happened. And then I went to DeKalb for school, lived there for a few years, and then ended up here in Madison. So it's been kind of bouncing around my whole life.
Yeah, man. I mean, shit. Growing up, I only bounced around cities. No, dude, you bounced around the whole country, man. Like, that's nuts.
Everybody always asks if I'm an Army brat, and I'm not. My dad just works for like corporate companies and stuff. He has like a very like niche spot and kind of like a job title and everything. So like when there's a new opportunity that comes up, there aren't very many. So like we usually just kind of follow that. But yeah.
I mean, shit. Speaking for that and like just kind of mobile jobs, right? That kind of have you, they have you reassigning, they have you relocating, state-wise, not internationally. Oops. Throughout the United States. I know a couple people who do that too, and I mean, for them, it's like travel, and then they stay at a motel, they stay at an inn, and they just keep bouncing around doing various architectural contracts for AT&T, if I'm remembering that correctly. So, I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, technically, the job I have now, which I've been bouncing back and forth with, that allows me technically to go wherever I want with the job, just because I have a certain level. I have like a strange exception, like freaking prophecy chosen one main character vibe exception with this company. But unfortunately, that's like one of the only perks of the job. So, I mean, I don't know, man. You were bouncing around the country a lot when you were younger, so I can only imagine it was like hard to kind of concrete yourself and, you know, make friends and stuff and stay social because you're like, dude, I'm not even going to be here that long. So, like, how was that? How was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was really hard. Like all things considered, that's pretty much the only way I can kind of explain it. I
Right.
am very thankful for the experiences though, because like you said, there was like when you moved the first time, you're like, okay, that was a once in a lifetime thing. Like I'm gonna settle down here, it'll be fine. So I ended up making friends and stuff, and then having to pack up and go. So after like the second or third time, you're kind of like, do I even want to make friends here?
Yeah.
Do I even want to do anything? And that's kind of the route that I took when we ended up in Cleveland, just because I knew like we got there and my dad was like, hey, just so you know, like I hate this job and we're leaving. So don't get comfortable. And we were like, okay, cool. So that was like nice to know that I was leaving and I didn't have to invest anything.
Yes.
Uh, it was very hard, but I'm actually like very thankful for the experience just because like at this point now I can almost talk to anybody. Like I'm a very social person. I've always been a super social person, ADHD, all that, like hyperactivity and stuff, and love making friends. So it's nice to have like I have some friends who live in Iowa still. Like I have some California friends from when I was like in theater and everything. I have a ton of Wisconsin friends, and it just made me feel a lot more well-rounded,
Yes.
I would say. Um, I will also say the other side of that coin is that I don't really know a lot about myself just because I haven't really had the experience of like being thrown to the wolves and having to figure out who I actually am just because every new spot we were at, I almost like reinvented myself because I was like,
Yes.
this is a cool opportunity, you know, to just like be somebody different or do something else. So it was kind of like a lot of moving parts at once that I'm kind of just trying to like put together to figure out who the hell I am as a person.
Yeah.
Uh, and obviously, like, if anybody's listening to this that's going through this stuff, like, I'm 27 and I struggle with it like crazy because I have so many friends that are like out getting married, having kids, full blown careers, like all this other stuff. But like, age doesn't obviously necessitate progress. So
Yes.
that's something I've had to really sit down and come to terms with. I'm still not fully to terms with it. You know, obviously I still get insecure about it, but you know, you got to just remind yourself like, it doesn't matter what other people are doing. Everybody moves at their own pace and that's all good.
Exactly, man. Exactly. And the thing is, too, everything, even if it's painful, man, even if it's like incredibly inconvenient, depending on your circumstance, everything happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
With me moving out here to Tennessee as of like January of 2022. So it's been way more than a year now, nice and comfortable here in what's kind of like the Goldilocks zone between the South, the North, and the West.
Mm-hmm.
And also the Goldilocks zone as far as, okay, so this is kind of what it's like to have four seasons. This is what it's kind of like to be in the vicinity of a tornado, but it rarely happens here.
Mm-hmm.
All that fun stuff. It's I've really gotten comfortable, and then we're having to make our move back to Arizona actually next month, like I said before. And the current group that I'm with, the current family that I'm with, we're just going separate ways because I want to try new things. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
when they ultimately decided, as soon as we moved into this house, they're like, nah, fuck Tennessee, man. Like, just because of certain details, they're like, nah, dude, we don't want to be a part of this anymore. As soon as we're done with this lease, we're going back to Arizona. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
Because it's so nice here. I don't know for anybody listening to this, whether it be my own folks, my own friends and family, or absolute strangers around the world, because apparently we're growing audiences in Indonesia, the Philippines, UK, Scotland. So thank you to everybody around the world who has been tuning in, whether it be because of countries we've interviewed from your part of the bands that we've interviewed from your part of the world or not. Thank you for tuning in for sure. But growing up in Arizona in the second most severe hot, dry state in the country, it was definitely refreshing to be able to come out here and experience Four Seasons, experience everything that I did, just because it's so much more colorful. And at least for most of my life where I lived, it's like you can see everything back home in Arizona because everything's on this giant incline. It's on this massive mesa, and then you are kind of encircled by mountains, and you drive an hour outside of town to really just get everything covered up. That way you can't look for absolutely hundreds of miles off into the horizon.
Mhm.
But like, I don't know, man, regarding that, I guess when you were dotting around the country and stuff, were there any states that you ended up, kind of being there for a little bit and you're like, hey, I mean, this could have been fun. This could be nice, that type of thing? Or are you pretty comfortable where you're at right now?
I would say a little bit of both. I personally did not have like a great personal experience when we lived in California.
Mm,
But like I loved the weather. We had a pool and everything like that. I had a lot of really good friends out there and like discovered my love for like musical theater and stuff like that out there. So it really holds a special spot in my heart, I would say so. Like I didn't have a good personal experience, but it would have been cool if the things were like a little bit different and we
yeah.
ended up weather and stuff. But other than that, I've lived in I want to say like four different towns in Wisconsin, like four different cities, and I absolutely love it here. This state absolutely has my heart. It's just there's just something about it, dude. Mostly everybody's really nice. There's always something to do. It's just a really nice kind of quaint spot. The weather sucks sometimes. I'll be honest. Um, but other than that, man, Wisconsin definitely has my heart. Like I always end up finding my way back here. I don't know what it is or why, but I always just end up finding my way back here somehow. So
Yeah. I mean, I like from an outsider perspective, you mentioned that you've like dotted back and forth and you've been in Wisconsin the most. So I can only assume and I can only provide an impression, think to myself that it's probably just because of the time, the advantage of time that Wisconsin had with you over other states and stuff. But definitely am very curious on digging into that theater background if you would be willing to talk about that, because I'm wondering if that had any effects on your journey so far as a vocalist and being the frontman for a band.
oh yeah, definitely. That's really where it all started. I was saying, I had a really bad like personal experience there, so I didn't really have a lot of friends in school.
Right.
And my mom and my sister found this place. It was called Tico. It was the Tulare County of Education, but they had like their own little like theater subsidiary kind of thing where it was like kids my age all the way up to high school, and they would just like basically do shows and like musicals and stuff as like an extracurricular activity kind of thing. It wasn't like you had to be in their school or anything like
Right.
that. But um, so I joined that. My first show was Hairspray. I was just like a chorus member, pretty much, just vibing.
Awesome.
Um, but yeah, it definitely sparked my love for it big time. Kind of got me comfortable with what we would consider the quote unquote spotlight. Just kind of being in the general view and performing for people and stuff like that. Because I was in a few shows out there, and I've always been singing ever since I was like a baby,
Really?
like being like a performer and stuff. I was in like church choirs, all that good stuff, school choir growing up, the whole nine. But yeah, then theater just kind of stuck out to me, and I think it was just because this is going to be kind of deep, and I don't want people to think I'm just some like philosophical douchebag.
Dude, bring it on, man. Bring the deep.
Yeah. So I think the reason why I loved it was because I was able to play somebody else and kind of get out of my own personal kind of like personality, I guess. Like I
Yes.
was in Willy Wonka and I was Mike TV. It was cool to be like, I'm a gamer nerd who's like upset and I'm going to be on TV for some fucking reason. Like,
Right.
or like I'm in Hairspray. I can just like dance around in a jazz square and not have to worry about shit for a while, So that's what it really got me comfortable, like being somebody else. And it was kind of like, it kind of just worked because like I said, every time I moved, I like reinvented myself and everything. So it definitely helped a lot. And it definitely does wonders with being in a band specifically and having to kind of, especially as like a front man, you take the brunt of like everything. You carry the show along. Like you're basically, because people who like might not be super into like the musical aspect of a band, right? And they're going to be like focusing on the person front and center. It's just kind of so you kind of have to deal with that and be ready for that quote unquote pressure. Everything like that. But it definitely helped just because performing in front of people was fucking terrifying, dude. Like that is it's at first, and after a while you just kind of get used to it and you just kind of ride the wave. But yeah, it definitely helped a ton. I was in a ton of shows in high school, like choir concerts and like dance recitals and musicals and plays and all this other stuff. So it definitely helped a ton.
Fantastic, man. And I mean, looking to the future, not even like with Dead Awaken the picture for now, let's just pretend. When you were doing the theater, when you were doing all these performances and you were giving your all, you were able to disassociate from your own identity, separate yourself from who you are, Dillon. Did you ever daydream about like getting into acting and like wanting to become an actor in the future?
Yeah, that was definitely like my biggest, that's still at this very moment, that's probably like my biggest dream, is to be like in movies or TV shows or something like that. I probably screwed it up by getting all these tattoos and shit, but I always daydreamed about it. Like I've always been infatuated with cinema and television and everything like that. Total cinephile. So yeah, I still daydream about it sometimes and like write down random movie scenes that pop into my head or something like that. And just kind of, but yeah, definitely. It was a lot more prevalent back then, but now it's still like, if I could ever do that, I would definitely do that.
Yeah. And I mean, today, dude, keeping in mind just deathcore vocals or like vocalist in general, heavy vocalist, we're now seeing in the last few years opportunities like Doom Eternal, the metal chorus and stuff. And then Tyler Shelton of Traders is like trying to get into voice acting and all these other like just creative mediums that correlate with doing vocals and doing, voice impressions of Gollum and all that type of shit. It just comes with it. Like you really learn how to become creatures. You learn how to become animals. And I have a feeling that one day the metal scene is going to have its own D. Bradley Baker or Tom Kent or Tom Kane, in which, yeah, sure, primarily they scream into a mic and look like they want to fucking hack you in half, and then the other side of the coin shows itself, wing, 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 ching, and then they're like, oh yeah, I also do voice acting, and I'm like, I've been Gorgoroth in freaking She-Ra and the Seven Deadly, whatever is out there. And it's really cool to see that our community, our vocalists are kind of breaching that wall, tearing it down. And they're like, well, if being a frontman for a heavy metal band doesn't pay the bills, what could, whilst I've invested all these years into honing my craft and becoming a vocalist? Well, voice acting, doing voice impressions. So it's simply been really cool to see how people have decided to twist that around and innovate. That way they can kind of profit as much as possible off of what they do, off of what they've invested years into. Because doing heavy vocals is 2023, people. It's March 4th, 2023. It's not easy to do heavy vocals. We all know this. And it's even harder to do the shit that Darius Tarani or the boys from Orphan or even Zelly from Paleface can do, literally chain smoking, doing whatever they do, and just actually sounding like authentic serial killers on the mic. And then, you meet them off stage and it's the meme. They're most peaceful people ever. And Dillon definitely seems to be another example of that, because this dude is just absolutely a teddy bear. And I think the mustache definitely helps too. It's nice and fluffy. I like it.
Thanks.
Of course.
Sure.
Absolutely, man. So as we kind of continue, and I mean, this has actually been, for me personally, no offense to any of our guests prior, because we've told a lot of great stories, but this is like ramping up, there we go, to be a really authentic and organic session where we're not trying to speed run everything. I definitely prefer the sessions like this. So we've talked about your background a little bit, your, young adult life, having to dot back and forth, and then finally, more or less, concreting yourself in Wisconsin. So you mentioned that when you got to a certain city among this great, like, I don't know, game of ping pong across the country,
Yep.
you ended up meeting some of the boys from Dead Awake. So
Yep.
before we discuss that, I guess I wanted to ask, you know, you did your theater stuff, you became a performer, you became more comfortable with being a performer and being in front of people, and it didn't matter, you know, if they laughed or just like boo, boo, because that shit, you know, you got to block that out. You got to separate yourself from that and just keep on going. So did you have any band projects before Dead Awake that you did?
Yeah, I did. So how I actually got into, like, I want to say heavier and like, because I was into like alternative music, kind of like everything you would see on like Rock Band and Guitar Hero, and then like Linkin Park. My sister introduced me to Linkin Park when I was a kid. Rest in peace to Chester, my
Rest in
absolute.
peace.
But yeah, so obviously I owe a ton of credit to her. But when I was in Green Bay, I met my best friend, Garrett Aiken. He's a fantastic, talented musician. He plays drums, he plays guitar. Like, he's got a hell of a singing voice that he doesn't utilize, and I have no idea why the fuck he doesn't. But yeah, so he actually, like, we ended up just becoming friends by happenstance. Like, he hit me up on Facebook one day and was like, "Hey, I heard you like this music, and I heard you play drums a little bit," because I did, but nothing crazy. He was like, "Do you want to come over and jam sometime?" And I'm like, "Sure." And then we started hanging out, and it just kind of like became this thing. And he was in a band that he was originally calling The Departed because that's his favorite movie.
Okay.
And he asked if I wanted to do vocals for it, and I was like, "Yeah, but what kind of stuff do you like want?" You know, and because I didn't know how to scream for the first like 3 or 4 years. I was, or not like 3 or 4, but like 2 years when I was in a band.
None of us
Um,
do. It's okay.
yeah, I didn't even like, I had no desire to try it at that point. Like, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. But I joined that band. We ended up becoming what Second to Fall. That's what our band name was. It was very like old school Avenged Sevenfold Heart, like metalcore
Yeah.
stuff. So like real simple, real riffy. But it was just me, Garrett, and our one of my best friends, Cody Stonebrook. He's got this amazing like solo project that I'll plug later, but he's insane. Like, this kid is literally a prodigy on the guitar. It's fucking nuts. So we were in a band called Second to Fall for a really long time, and we were like the youngest band in the Green Bay scene. So it was kind of one of those whole like, "Oh, you're young, like you guys won't do shit" kind of mentality, and like in a bunch of like in an environment of a bunch of middle-aged kind of people playing like Five Finger Death Punch type stuff, or
Yes.
like death metal sludge shit, you know. So we really had to make a name for ourselves and everything. But we gigged like every weekend. We were playing shows and stuff. We had a pretty extensive history there. And then when I moved to Illinois, it was kind of hard because everybody else in the band pretty much moved to St. Paul, and we became, or no, this was prior to, but we became Conundrum because we really enjoyed progressive metal. So we kind of changed up our whole style before, like, I went for college, recorded an EP there. And then we recorded an album like a few years later as Conundrum, like the progressive metal people. And I joined Dead Awake while I was still in Conundrum. And it was kind of like, Cody sat me down. He was like, "Hey man, like, you guys seem to be doing pretty good. Like, you seem pretty happy and doing this heavier stuff. Like, and it's really hard to get you to come out for shows for this. Like, what do you want to do?" And we ended up parting ways. All on good terms and shit though. Like,
Yeah.
still some of my best friends. Like, I still game with them like almost every day of the week, like at least once a week. You know, I'm seeing them next weekend when we play the show in Green Bay and shit. So still one of my best friends. But yeah, it was like a really weird Avenged Sevenfold metalcore to like old school death metal, metalcore to prog, basically.
Yeah.
And then I ended up in Dead Awake just doing heavy stuff, just because that's where like I really wanted to get there eventually, because I love the heavy shit, like I always have. And then it kind of just worked out. So I've only been in that other band, but that was, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So technically you were in 3 other projects before, but they were all the same people. They just renamed, they rebranded a couple times, which that makes absolute sense. And though I have never actually like been in a garage, been in a basement to play actual music with any other kids. I remember, dude, middle school and high school, and my buddies back home in Arizona can confirm this for me. We went from what was supposed to be a Dennis Shortverstoff era Asking Alexandria themed or like inspired metalcore band called Upon These Scars. But the funny thing was, I didn't realize this at the time, the logo that we ended up making for that, the emblem that we ended up making for that, which the emblem I actually use for my main branding on the channel, and that's the Sean Cross now, but it used to be UTS. If anybody didn't know that little fun fact, but we went from I think Insanity, and it, just a Metallica looking freaking logo. We did Straight Jacket J-Care, which was supposed to be more clean, the Cleansing era Suicide Silence inspired. There was Blinking Through Bloodshot, Awake and Aroused, War Paint, and Upon These Scars, really. And most of the lyrical content that I wrote for those projects, I'll be utilizing with my current one, which actually fucking has music out, which that's like it took way too long, but we're finally here, so that's cool.
I feel that.
Yeah, dude, it's like 5 to 7 years in the making. I'm like, yes, one song out, let's go.
Oh, yeah.
But what's up?
Congratulations, that's a huge step.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It just took way too fucking long. Like I should have had a couple albums out or something like that, But also when all you're doing really is not even, again, like I said, playing in a basement or playing in a garage with like these with any musicians at all, and it's more or less like, yeah, a couple of us know how to play guitar. I think we might have a drummer, and you just write lyrics, you design the logo, you do the chicken scratch shit. That was all it ever was. Unfortunately. So over time I'm like, fuck this, I'm just gonna hire someone to help me out, make the instrumentals, and boom, error was born. So I mean, it's all process, people, and I guess that's another reiterating what we both stated before. Everybody goes at their own pace. I didn't mean to go at that pace, but it happened for a reason. We're here now, and new music should be coming out sometime this year. We'll see. We'll see. Let's go. Exactly. Got to keep the hype up, got to keep the momentum up. Otherwise, it's just going to die and then sink into a grave and never come back up, because graves are final measures. But I don't know, man. Like, so you joined Dead Awake back in what year?
2018, I believe. I think it was January of 2018.
Oh, shit. Okay. So, I mean, pretty recently. I was thinking this was like 2012 to 2016 or something, but there's only like 4 years of difference between us, I guess. So I think that's usually I have people that are at least they have a decade on me. So that's usually who I'm bringing on the podcast. But yeah, man, I mean, joining Dead Awake, what was like, before I ask that, and before I just provide a moment of silence for no reason, I was meaning to ask you about the theater stuff, right, real quick. And I was looking to ask you, like, what was the defining moment for you as far as performing, that you decided in your head, you're like, this is what I want to do? Like, was there a specific performance you can recall regarding that?
I would say probably, I'm not entirely sure if there was a specific
it's okay.
there was like a specific performance per se. I think it was like when I first got the call that I like got my first lead. It was Mike TV and Willy Wonka. It wasn't like the main thing, but I was there for the majority of the show, and I had lines and I had my own songs and all this stuff, and it was just like, I remember getting that call, listening to that voicemail, and like crying because I was so excited, because I was like, I never thought like I would ever get that opportunity. The people who were getting leads constantly in that company were like amazing, like fucking talented musicians and gorgeous singers, and they knew music theory, and they took acting classes and shit, and like being in the same realm as that, just like that feeling of like, holy shit, I did it, was probably when I was like, yeah, this is great. And then obviously, like, I think it was probably that same show, like just making people laugh, like being like, oh, they laughed at what I said. Like, I didn't write it, obviously, it's just like how I perform, but it's just still like, I don't know, man, there's something like so great about that. And like I was in Anything Goes twice, and one of them was in high school, and I was playing this really stupid like mafia guy from like the 1920s on a cruise ship, and I'm talking like this, I'm just doing stupid shit and like just making people laugh and having a blast with it. And I was like, I could do this for the rest of my life. Is like that was probably the main point, just because I was like, it was like the roles that make people laugh. That's my
Yes.
shit. So
Yeah. And I mean, as a performer, man, like comedy and making people laugh, that can be the most dopamine, serotonin causing, like, I don't even know the word. I always space off these intermediate words in English, but it, like, I don't know, it just resonates and it kind of just ignites that dopamine and serotonin in your brain. And you're like, this is it. I finally did it. I finally like gained some positive reception from some positive responses from the crowd instead of just like boo or like
yeah,
it's
cricket.
yeah, exactly, crickets. That, oh my god, I can't even imagine. And I mean, I know how that feels because I've performed by myself, and I did an acoustic cover, the Low Gains acoustic cover, Low Gains mix for The Lines by Beartooth. I performed that on my own in front of all these kids or all these parents too. And that was like, oh god, here's to not fucking up. But I'm like, just like, dude, just focus on the lyrics, focus on the song. And this was like acoustic guitar and singing at one. So I'm like, okay, I'm familiar with this now. No stage fright. I don't give a fuck. And I just did it. And I mean, not many people I knew were there. So it's like, it's definitely one of those, it was one of those moments that I enjoyed by myself until I told my folks back home. And even then they weren't really emotionally connected with the moment. They're like, oh yeah, cool. You performed on your own. That's not bad. And I remember being upset. I remember being disappointed because I was covering a song instead of performing an original song that I wanted to do. And that song still will be coming out eventually. That'll be a great one. It's going to be acoustic though, people. So it's not going to be metal, but whenever it does come out, I think you guys will like it. So as a sequel to that question, really, and a great way to kind of creep into the end of the first half of the podcast session. And again, thank you, Dillon, for giving your time, deciding to be a part of this podcast and tell your story to my audience as well as yours, but the opportunity in general. Thank you. So concerning your entry into Dead Awake, as a sequel to the last question, what was like your limelight moment? The same way you reacted, the same way you felt, really, when you got that first laugh, when you got that first positive response. What was the moment for you in Dead Awake that really had you comfortable? It made you warm. It made you feel like really, really good. And you're like, this is where I belong.
That's a really good one, actually. So, I would say probably I was just like friends with everybody in the band at first. So like they had me hop up and do like guest vocals for a couple songs is pretty much it. But one of the first shows that I did guest vocals with them on, it was for Ultra Vitam before we redid the EP. And it was at this place called the House Cafe in DeKalb, which holds a very, very special place in our hearts. Rest in peace to that venue. It's not there. But it was like a variety show. There were like 20 or 30 bands there. There was like local rappers and like EDM artists and like metal bands. And like I hopped up for one of the songs and the place was packed. It was like the most packed I've ever seen that place. And I went up there and like grabbed the mic. I was nervous as shit, because I'm like, this isn't my band, whatever. I went up and I just started like doing my gutturals and people started cheering and then people started pits and everybody was moving around like crazy. And it was like, I wasn't even in the band at that point. I was just like, I don't know if they were treating it as like an audition or something, but I was just happy to be on stage playing heavier stuff,
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, like this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, this is the type of music I'm supposed to be doing. Just brought a ton of joy. And then they asked me to be a part of the band like a week or two later. And then after we made that announcement, this guy's name is Ross. He's the drummer for a band called Synovial. They're like a really good progressive metal band out in Illinois. If you guys are ever into that, please look them up. They're fantastic. But their drummer randomly, I'll never forget this. I was parking at my tech school to go to class, and I got this random Facebook message from somebody I didn't know. And he was like, hey, I'm Ross. I'm the drummer of this band, Synovial. Like, I just saw the announcement that you're going to be a part of the band. I'm really excited because I saw you do the guest feature there in DeKalb, and it was amazing. You're going to fit right in. Like, we're really happy to have you in the scene. And it just kind of like was such a nice, warm welcome that I will literally never forget. Like Ross was the day one supporter of me in this scene and like in this band and everything. So big shout out to Ross. But that moment was like, okay, like I'm doing something right. Like people are excited to see me here. And I had just moved into Illinois, you know, so I didn't know a ton of people, but it was just nice that people welcomed me in with open arms at the time and everything. So yeah, that was definitely probably the moment there.
Badass, dude. And I mean, I can only imagine how rewarding that must have felt, because I mean, you weren't even like set in stone. You're like, yo, my name is Dillon and we are dead away. You're like, yeah, I'm just kind of hanging out here and filling in because I don't have a vocalist. You know, like, and then I mean, the crowd ended up responding as if you were in the band. Like, that's badass, dude.
Yeah, it felt great.
Yeah, man, that's really cool. And I mean, you said they ended up officially welcoming you in about a week after that.
You cut out a little bit. One second.
All right, but can you hear me now?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there.
I don't know why. Like, this is a Shure SM7B and it cuts out at least once every session. Anyways, back to the emotional part and just getting really into this. You said you were welcomed in about a week after that night, after that show. Was there any commentary the band members had regarding that night and regarding your welcome that you can recall, that you remember?
I can't recall a ton. At the time they had a vocalist.
Oh, right.
Doing dual vocals for a really long time there. I remember them like bringing up the idea and them hitting me up about it. And my main thing was like, this is like Noah's band. Like his name was Noah, fantastic vocalist. He's still in Rockford and everything. But he was like, I was like, I don't want to take any of this away, because a front man is a very, like, I consider it like a very sacred kind of spot, you know, like you want everybody to feel included, and dual vocals doesn't really work all the time. You got to be really careful with that. But I remember them being like, nah, dude, like we want you up here just because it's going to make it easier and it's going to be badass, like having the dual vocals and everything. So everybody, like, they were really excited to have me on board and have me start working with them. So that was really cool. That was definitely the coolest part, I want to say.
Badass, man. That's really cool. And I can only hope that, you know, you continue to have great opportunities in the future, including outside of doing the music, acting careers. Do you do anything? Obviously, like you're a front man in a band, but you got to have a job to actually provide yourself a financial backbone. So what do you do outside of music right now, man?
Yeah, so I am actually a patient support representative for a company called UW Healthcare Direct. I work in the CPAP resupply department. So basically, like, what my job is to like field phone calls and help people get equipment for their like CPAPs and BiPAPs and everything like that, so they can like breathe at night. So it's kind of healthcare. I want to say, like, I'm part of the healthcare field. I'm not like boots on the ground or anything like that, but I just help people get their medical equipment and kind of go from there. So.
Badass, yeah. And how long have you been doing that, man?
Oh, not long. Not long at all, really. I think I've been here for like maybe 4 going on 5 months. I came from property management previously. Ended up absolutely hating the industry like crazy. Just because I saw a lot of like what I can, like, it just didn't fit my moral compass, you know, having to be in like meetings for CEOs being like, yeah, like, let's raise all the rents by 20%, even though we're the most expensive building in Madison to live in, because we know afford it. And if they can't, they'll just leave. And I'm like, that's just so fucked up. Like, yeah. I couldn't do it, man. And I just did not get along with my boss at the time and everything. I was definitely not happy. So that's why I kind of tucked tail. And then my girlfriend and all of our friends really helped me get this job. And yeah, it's been good.
Badass, man. I'm glad to hear that you have a pretty profound and pretty well off job, man. Because I mean, like I said, dude, I scam, like, I would prefer to say that I don't scam people into going back to school, but I kind of do, and it's like absolutely what I have to do the job right and to get good stats. Blah 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 blah. I really hope nobody from the company ever listens to my podcast, because fuck that company.
Yeah,
I'm not even gonna say it, say the name, because that's just unnecessary. But good God, I await my next opportunity. That way I can get the fuck out of working from home. And I mean, it's nice because I edit my my dog water music, or not music videos, but I edit my dog water quality YouTube videos. And, you know, I'm able to work on covers. I'm able to do this pretty easily, but it comes at a lot of cost. I don't basically, especially being out here in Tennessee, man, no social life since at least April of last year. So holy shit, it's almost been a year since I went back to from home work and isolated work. But it's deprived me of so many opportunities, and it's really the reason I'm going to have to move back to Arizona. So love my job because I get money, I guess, and they offer benefits, but I work 60 hours a week with no overtime. And yeah, fuck the company, whatever. So yeah, it's, oh my God, it's so brain dead too, man. It's like one of the most deep fried jobs I think I hopefully that I'll ever work, but we'll see what happens. So as we continue learning about you and not, you know, me ranting about shit, because I'll do that on my own time. I wanted to go ahead and quickly, as we're wrapping up the first half of the podcast, I wanted to pluck 5 artists, albums, or major people like philosophers, maybe celebrities or something. Because I mean, I know I have a couple guilty pleasures in that field that have helped you really, really define yourself and hone yourself, I guess, for the role that you contribute as the front man of Dead Awake.
Right. Okay. I'll probably take a little bit from each category.
Yeah.
For albums, my number one favorite album of all time, I know it front to back, and it's helped me so much personally, has got to be Language by The Contortionist.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's definitely like, it's just a beautiful record. And it, like I said, it helped me a lot personally and kind of helped me open my mind a little bit, I guess you could say. But that was a huge influence for me. M Shadows of Avenged Sevenfold, they were my favorite band for the longest fucking time. People can clown me all you want. I don't give a shit. That band rips. So M Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold, like he was the first vocalist I ever saw live, like my first concert and everything.
Oh,
like,
shit.
yeah, and it was fucking nuts, dude. That man is just like a god to me. So M Shadows, big time. Rare Form, the re-recording by After the Burial, that's a huge one. Just because it's kind of like the heavier side. And like when I first listened to the original version of that record, because they redid the vocals and everything, I'm sure you know that.
Yes.
But yeah, like that was the first time I heard like a pig squeal. I was like, what the fuck? Vincent Bennett from the Acacia Strain, huge influence for me. That was like the heaviest, like that was like beat down before it was cool, pretty much. You know, now I see it in hindsight, it's more so like just a down-tuned version of hardcore, but it's like that was the heaviest shit I'd ever heard. It was ignorant, his breakdown lines, like I'm not fucking sorry, and then just like boom, and like, all the lyrics and everything. Oh my God. And that's a huge one for me. And then I'll probably say last is going to be, well, these are kind of the same on my opinion, but the first one I'm just going to say was Phil Bozeman, because Whitechapel fucking changed my life when I first heard like Possession and This Is Exile and everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely, my perception on what the fuck music was. And then Mitch Lucker from Suicide Silence. He is easily my biggest inspiration in all of this music stuff. Just the tone of his vocals I've never been able to match, which is totally fine because you know I'm my everything, and no, like besides Kyle from Tactosa.
Yes, I was about to mention that.
I was gonna say I have a very hard time finding vocalists that can even mimic a fraction of that tone. And Ricky Hoover, but
yes,
yeah, he's like easily my biggest inspiration. All the tattoos and the heavy music and his stage presence, the fucking stomp and the shaking.
The stomp, my guy, the stomp.
I remember Garrett introduced me, my best friend introduced me to them, not like personally, but showed me them. And he was like, you're not, dude, these guys look like they should be an all-time low. And I was like, what? And he turned on the first song we ever listened to by them was Unanswered. And I heard the, Good.
Dun
And I
dun
was,
dun dun dun
oh,
dun dun
yeah.
dun dun dun.
I was like, the fuck is this? This is sick. It's like the ear piercing screams and everything, man. That Mitch Lucker is definitely my biggest inspiration as a vocalist. And man, I still remember where I was at, what time it was when I found out that he passed. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was like him and Chester. Chester is also a huge influence to me. Obviously, that was like my first heavier band. And without Hybrid Theory, I don't think I would be here, like in this spot, you know. So yeah, Hybrid Theory is the most influential record I think that's ever really kind of touched me. But Mitch Lucker vocally is like, I want to be a combination of like his stage presence with like Vincent's like lyrics and Phil Bozeman's tone. Like that is like
Yeah.
what I love to be as a vocalist. That's like what I strive for.
A deadly combination, if I do say so myself. And
Absolutely.
I mean, it's funny, like almost every person I've talked to recently, whether it be in the Florida scene or the general deathcore scene, most of my guests recently, really, they've all been mentioning Kyle, man. They've all been mentioning Tactosa. And I'm like, dude, there's a reason for that shit, man. They are going to make history, even if it's just because primarily their vocalist sounds like a, you know, legendary, iconic vocalist. I mean, after all, they've said it themselves, people. They're planning on descending into a more death metal tone and not, you know, the classic OG MySpace era deathcore, as other people call it. Because
Right.
unfortunately, I only really descended into the scene of deathcore after Mitch passed away and after the memorial show was released to YouTube. I'm like, okay, so deathcore, like Chelsea Grin, it was just a whole thing, man. It was a whole thing. It was a whole experience. But I mean, there's a reason he's constantly mentioned. So rest in peace to him always. And I mean, he's kind of irreplaceable even after all these years. But people, y'all gotta stop being toxic towards Eddie Hermita, or I'm gonna lose my shit. Like, leave the guy alone. He's also a really good vocalist. He's a really sweet guy. And I think he's continuing to make the band bigger and bigger. After all, they returned to the record label. They did the cleansing and the Black Crown on. So leave them the fuck alone. They're doing good. New album coming out this month, actually, which is crazy. And I cannot wait to hear it. But as we descend into the second half of the session, we will be right back for an ad break. Cool. And we're back, episode 45. It's currently 7:41 p.m. on the 4th of March. For those of you who were in the first half with us, we are with Dillon of Dead Awake. And this is a band I've been following for quite some time now. And he has shared so much of his story with us so far. So again, thank you, Dillon, for deciding to take this time with us so we can learn more about you and your band project. Now, we go ahead and say, fuck frontman syndrome. And we learn more about the band itself. We learned about your contributions to the band. We learn about the impression that the band has left upon you, and basically all these other little fun details that people might want to ask in person while seeing you guys live, but depending on how packed the room is or how long the merch line could be, they're like, okay, I would ask this, but you know, I'm just gonna get merch and get out of here because he looks tired, whatever it could be. So for starters, I know that you ended up joining in Dead Awake a little bit later in their startup, in their lineage, in their history, their legacy. So I don't know if you would be able to answer this question, but it's definitely a question I like to ask for every guest. Do you know the reason, the meaning behind the band's name?
I do actually, yeah. So the original vocalist, he kind of came up with the name because I think before that it was going to be like Decapitator or something, you know, just like I think it was going to be Disdain. I think that was going to be the band's name, like just because of the heavier shit and everything. But Noah popped in and he made it Dead Awake, and he kind of explained it to me, like, because there is a movie called Dead Awake just without the forward slash, and people ask about it. They're like, "Are you?" Sorry, there's my rabbit. If you wanted to.
Background guest, let's go.
Yeah, that's
what's up, dude?
He's just sitting on my chair. Sorry. Anyway, but yeah, so basically, Noah still is a super spiritual guy. He's very like in tune with his spirituality and very in tune with the world in a level, like in a way and on a level that I'll never be. I don't know how he attained it, but this man has got such a really cool like view on the world and energies and shit. And like, I believe all that shit's real. So it's kind of cool that like, since I can't come into tune with it, he can, and I can live vicariously through that.
Yes.
But basically he equated it to the death of an ego. So like when your ego is dead, like you kind of take on this whole new life kind of thing. So like when your ego is dead, you kind of wake up. So it's like with the ego, when it's dead, you're awake. So it's kind of like
cool.
Yeah, so it's like part of you dies, but part of you wakes up simultaneously. So that's why it was kind of dead awake with the / in there, because it's like a process, one without the other. So he came up with a really cool name that's super unique, and like I love it. It's so cool just thinking about all that. And I learned that like a year or two ago, because I was like, I don't know, it just sounds cool. I didn't make it up. Like I'm just here to make the music. I'll let you know if I figure it out. And I found out. So
that's actually really cool. And like you can easily equate that dead awake as a statement to kind of like going to a live show, or for you when you were doing your theater performances and stuff as a younger kid. It's like maybe you're emotionally dead or something like that before you attend the show, before you go to this theater. Or for you, maybe you're in a rougher mental state, and once you get on stage, once you kind of leave all that behind, leave behind any fear, stage fright, ego, as you said, which that's the name, that's the official meaning. You're able to awaken, you're able to be free, you're able to unleash your potential, which is like really cool to think about. And goddamn, that is such a cool meaning behind a band name, man. Like that's really cool.
I'm really stoked about it. Yeah. And we always talk about it too. Like, we're glad it's kind of like an out there kind of explanation and not necessarily what most like deathcore or heavier bands would kind of base their names around. I love that about that, because like if we would have kept the name Disdain, or if they would have, we probably would have just fit into the same category as everybody else. Especially for the 2018 scene when like Beatdown was the shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Beatdown was all there was, just down-tuned shit. Our guitarist bought a 9-string guitar. It was fucking heavy and stupid, but it was cool that we have this name to kind of separate ourselves from it a little bit. So I love the name. I absolutely love the name.
Absolutely agreed. And it's like, looking back on some of the episodes that we've done before, like there have been plenty of guests who have had that substance that Dead Awake seems to have with its name, but plenty of other bands are like, yeah, we just thought it was cool. And I'm like, okay, it's time to move on. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for someone of my, I guess just my opinion, my perspective on music, and when it comes to really adding soul to what you're wanting to do, your creation, when you add more detail to whatever you're trying to do, like it works the same way with any narrative, people. You end up being more intrigued by a narrative when it isn't just like beginning, middle, plot, end, whatever. You end up enjoying a story more when it has twists, right? You end up enjoying a story more when you find out the good guy is actually a psychopathic villain, that type of shit. That's what substance, that's what depth is to me. And especially when it comes to lyrical writing or deciding a project's name. That's why my band's name is a whole ass statement, Blind Without Our Failures. We, like, without our failures, without our sins, without our mistakes, without our human flaws, we are blind. We might as well be like have a cloth wrapped around our eyes. And I absolutely plan to incorporate that imagery, because it also correlates with a massive project I want to do in the future, correlating to an anime. But that's all I will say. And shout out to Brand of Sacrifice always for validating that sort of creative mindset with Lifeblood and God Brand, because that shit was insane to me when I found out it was about Berserk, and then I watched Berserk after that. So they kind of paved the way for that type of niche in the genre, and I will always appreciate it. And it's good fucking music. Go check it out, people, if you haven't already. So I really appreciate that. I really love and respect. I admire the substance, the depth behind you guys' band name. And that's just talking about the freaking band name, okay? So then we fast forward a little bit. We jump away from that after giving it the love it deserves, the appreciation it deserves. And also, you said Colin was the original vocalist, right?
No, his name was Noah.
Noah, Jesus. There must have been Colin somewhere in the session, but Noah, shout out to you, man. That's actually really cool. And I love that. I love that you are like so involved with your spirituality and stuff, because I like to say I am too, but not really. I'm working on it though. That's something I'm going to be working on in the future, because I believe in like the supernatural, the paranormal, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool shit. And yeah, so we move on from that after giving Noah the respect, the admiration, the love that major idea deserves. So with your entry into the band, which we more or less said that before, but this is a different question, I promise. When you joined the band and you were comfortable after that first show, after being a fill-in vocalist, and then after a week later, you had random people reaching out to you, you had the band gratifying that situation, appreciating it, and welcoming you into the band. I kind of wanted to ask about how the creative process started with your first major effort with Dead Awake.
Yeah, it's actually a really cool story. It's kind of like it honestly doesn't feel real. It's kind of like it's just nuts. So the first EP was already written. And you can tell Noah's spirituality too by if you go back and listen to the Insurrectionist EP, definitely listen to, this is for anybody that wants a good introduction into the band. Start with the deluxe edition, but listen to the first like demos, because my vocals aren't on those at all. That's all Noah with the original guitar and everything like that. So definitely listen to that. And it's all very spiritual and stuff like that too. But when I first joined the band, the first song I ever wrote with the guys was 12418. I had a really like big personal thing kind of happen around then. Someone very close to me like lost their baby, pretty much had a miscarriage. And these people were like super devout Catholics, you know, they like went to church every Sunday, didn't even eat fucking like, they ate fish on Fridays. They like went to confessional all the time. They did nothing but like, my sister works in the fucking church, you know, like, so yeah, sorry. It's about,
You're good.
Yeah.
You're good.
But yeah, so, that happened. And I found that out on January 24th of 2018. And I messaged Michael, our lead guitarist, and me and him have like a very special musical connection. We had written music prior to that and everything, and kind of bonded prior to that, like prior to me being in the band and stuff. And I was like, hey, this just happened. I kind of want to write a song about it, like maybe like a melodic thing. Cause at this point we had no idea what the fuck our sound was going to be, you know? So he was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And I was like, cool. And I had no instrumental like idea whatsoever. I just had kind of like the do-da, do-da, do-da drum beat in my head. And that same night I wrote like 3 pages of lyrics that ended up being in the song. And like, I talked to Michael the next day before we went to the studio, and he was like, oh yeah, I had this idea for like, this was going to be the drum beat. You said the same drum beat, had the same chord progression in his head.
That's crazy.
Yeah, dude, it was fucking nuts. So we went to the studio and we basically wrote this song from scratch. And like I wrote all the lyrics and stuff and gave Noah like parts and everything to do and stuff like that. So that was kind of like weird how well it just kind of melded together. Like I joined the band at this perfect time in order to make this song. Me and Michael had the same idea for the song, went in, recorded it, and that was like my first major effort to the band. And then we didn't release that song until our self-titled album like a few years back. So we had that in our pocket for a while. But yeah.
Badass, dude. And I mean, especially like, I guess then I would want to ask about what has been your favorite song to write lyrically for the band, or shit, you might have written riffs, you might have written like drum parts. Okay, we finally have that together. So I don't know like what you've written for the band so far, but what's been your favorite thing to write for the band?
Yeah, so I've written a lot of lyrics starting with like about half of our self-titled record. Just because like we released that after Noah parted ways with us. So a couple of the songs I didn't write. But ever since then I've basically been writing all the lyrics and everything. The one that's so near and dear to my heart is Vagabond, and anybody who knows our band probably knows that that's going to be the case. Just because it meant a lot to me at the time, and like the lyrical content and everything. Whoa, is this Storm there?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Just like you see the camera just fly off. Just tornadoes shit. Oh god. You were saying, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine, dude. So yeah, it's definitely Vagabond. It's a topic that was very near and dear to my heart after something personal that happened to me and stuff. And it was just the delivery, the writing of it, the way that the song ended up being, because it was a completely different song from when we demoed it. Like a completely different song, dude. It was awesome. And like, so that means a lot, like obviously with the stream numbers and everything and how people like react to it live and stuff. That was definitely like the biggest musical contribution that I've like ever made. So it's very near and dear to my heart. So I would say Vagabond. And then another one that I really enjoyed writing was Iudicem per Ignum off of Vile. It just basically means trial by fire in Latin because it sounds cooler than trial by fire.
Yeah.
But I had those lyrics in like not all of them, but like this beginning of these lyrics since I was in high school. I had this really vivid nightmare of like falling asleep and then waking, like I was basically like in hell pretty much, just like walking through this hellscape. And like basically what I wrote about in the song is what happened in the dream. Like all these people are trying to like grab me and everything like that. I'm trying to get away. Like I see a light over there, so I go to this light, and then this person, like this monster thing, is just kind of like throws like a sword on the ground pretty much, and it's like, you can strike me down and you'll be fine, or you can like use it on yourself and you'll never have this shit happen to you again. Yeah. And so I used it on myself and everything, and then like went back into the room. It was almost like, it was really weird, like I went back into my body. No, I wasn't on any drugs or anything. I was a kid,
right?
So I just want to preface it with that. It wasn't like, you will not have that happen to you if you trip on shrooms or so just a disclaimer there. But yeah, so like I had no idea what to write for this like death metal song, and I was like writing it and I couldn't fucking figure it out. And I had a studio day the next day, and then I just started like writing I was like, oh, maybe I can actually write about this. And I wrote the first line that I had in my head forever, and then it just kind of became this story that's like what I consider actually like a really well written narrative. That's just me jerking my own dick. I'm sorry. I'm really proud of it.
You're good.
But yeah, I'm really proud of how it kind of like is described and how it's rounded out and everything. It kind of makes this story, and the music in the background like literally just helps encapsulate that hellscape and that redemption kind of arc and everything in there. But that's like, I'm super proud of that one. Super proud.
Badass, dude. So that's your favorite song that you've written so far, other than Vagabond, which featuring John the Butcher, baby, formerly from the Last 10 Seconds of Life, hopefully soon announced to be a part of Crystal Lake, but I don't know. So disclaimer, I do not know, but I really hope. I'm manifesting that shit, dude, because I think that is the next big step that he deserves, like being with a band that's on the Sharp Tone Records roster, like for one. For two, I mean, he's actively learning Japanese, bro. I'm sorry, but are any of the other candidates doing that? I don't know. Disclaimer again. But anyways, really love that song. And I remember first finding out about you guys with the self-titled album, and I remember seeing all the features, and I remember noticing that you guys were a 2 vocalist band and stuff. So I don't mean to intrude, but I guess for insight and stuff, what ended up happening with Noah?
Yeah, so like I was saying before, he was very like very spiritual, and that reflected in the work, so it, like I said, if you listen to the first EP, like a lot of it is like very kind of spiritual-esque. And I didn't have that same experience. So when I would write lyrics and everything, he didn't necessarily like agree with the topic or something because it maybe like struck a chord, or we just had a lot of creative differences. And what actually happened was, it was Vagabond. I sent him the lyrics and I told him what I was writing it about and everything. And he just wasn't about it, just because of his own personal experiences and stuff. And he kind of just went ghost for a little bit, which he needed, it, like, he did what he needed to do for himself. And he came back and he's like, hey, this dual vocals thing isn't really working for me. Like, I want to be able to like do all the things that I believe in, and like Dillon should feel comfortable doing the things that he believes in.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna go and do my own thing and everything. Like, best of luck. So that's kind of what happened. And then we recorded and released Vagabond. That was like my first song as the only sole vocalist of Dead Awake too. So I think that's probably why it means a lot to me as well. But
yeah,
yeah,
badass, dude. And I do appreciate you sharing with that.
Yeah. Oh, you cut out again. I think it might be Zoom. I feel like Zoom might be pulling some shit.
Okay. There
we go. Yep.
There we go. Jesus. So, I mean, I do appreciate you sharing that with us, because I mean that's like, it's not like anything bad happened, but that is an internal business for the band. So I do appreciate you sharing that with us. So that brings me to my next question, because I would hate to like take up your time and like have you like lyrically dissect either the self-titled album or the Vile record, because I still have yet to listen to Vile, and I might as well listen to the self-titled album as well, all the way through for the channel, and then ask you. But when it comes to writing lyrics for Dead Awake, with the creative difference thing that happened, what did you end up deciding was the most important thing for writing most, if not all or any, of Dead Awake's songs? Like, what's your lyrical process?
Honestly, my big thing is I write a lot about how like I'm personally feeling and how I perceive the world and stuff like that. That's the overarching concept of Vile, is just all the things that I really like find gross in the world and stuff like that. And it's just basically the angry record, because the previous one, Melancholia, was all the things, like it was basically a concept album about like my mental health journey and everything like that. But yeah, honestly, like, this is gonna sound so cliche, but just keeping it real, just literally being like, this is how I feel. This is the only way I can express that without people wanting to put me in grippy socks. And like, I wanted it to be real. I wanted it to be relatable in a way. There's a lot of times when like we'll perform a song and like, or like put out a song and people are like, I relate to that. I feel your pain. Like, thank you for putting that out. And that means the world to me, just because like, this is a sense of, this band is my escapism, it's what keeps me sane. It's my therapy and everything like that. But also, you can't really have that kind of connotation with a project if you aren't really dissecting what you're feeling, like, especially with the heart, like the heavier and the hardcore music and stuff like that.
Yes.
Keeping it straight, like I could put on a fake smile and laugh all day long and everything and talk about how great life is, but that's not how I feel, like I have depression and anxiety. Everybody does these days, which is understandable, So it's just kind of like, that's how I feel. And I'm going to keep it real in this music, because the people who are listening to this music, they either relate to it or they just love how heavy it is, but I'm going to do what I can with the time that I've been given with it to just like express myself and do what I genuinely feel is real and what I want to like write lyrics about and stuff. That doesn't mean that I don't ask the guys for their input on my lyrics and stuff like that. Because I do, and they're as much of a part of the process as I am. Good. So it's really nice to know that they're like comfortable with what I'm saying and everything. But yeah, I just try to keep it real and just be like, yeah, life fucking sucks. People are horrible. People are disgusting. But at least we were born in a time where 8-string guitars exist. So I'm using that to my fucking advantage, dude. Like, if I have to preach over a bass drop, I'll fucking do it.
Dude, absolutely, man. And I mean, I don't know. You mentioned, it might be a cliche, but the way I see it, it's kind of the reason I got into heavier music. because not only is it instrumentally heavier, it's usually emotionally heavier. And if it's not, it's probably because the band is making so much music, or Jesus, so much money off of their music that they can afford not to care. They can afford to be happier. They can afford like all these luxuries through the art, which good for them. Bands like Beartooth, man, after all these years, after all these albums, this next album following Riptide, we're finally hearing an album where, because Caleb took responsibility and decided to sober up and not drink as much, if not at all anymore, he's like, well, I'm finally being able to escape my demons and I won't let it wash through me like a riptide. That's more or less what the lyrics are saying. Good on you. Good on any of those bands. Good on any of those lyricists, those artists who are able to express authentically, honestly, happiness and joy and just comfort through even like slightly heavier music. Because I won't be surprised if Beartooth ends up becoming the new like Led Zeppelin / AC/DC band in the future. People will be like, oh, I remember Sick and Disgusting. Oh, it's like the new Back in Black or whatever. Like I can see that being the future of music. And I love the future. I love like daydreaming about that timeline where my beard is white and my kids and grandkids are like, can you not put on Disease again? Like that type of shit. It's really rewarding. It's really cool. And especially bands like, or especially songs like Riptide. But dude, ladies and gentlemen, like honestly, ask yourself, is it a cliche or is it just consistency in authenticity and just people unleashing themselves, putting their heart on their sleeve, which like, that's probably the most emo thing I'll ever say on the podcast, but also get over it because it's true. It's a relevant statement. You got to put your heart on your sleeve and you got to put your mind, your body, your soul, your spirit into the music. You got to be honest with yourself. Like this is just an example for an example. Bands like Attila, right? They kind of just, Chris and the boys, they kind of write music about partying and having sex and just doing all this other stupid shit. I'm like, good for you, but also go away sometimes. Because it's like, I don't know. It's heavy music. It's fun. And for people who enjoy it, they enjoy it. I definitely don't listen to Attila every day because I'm like, I don't really care about partying. I don't really care about blabbering and gloating about having sex with my wife or whomever his current partner is to him and all this other shit. It's like when I'm writing music, it's because I either want to give people hope or tell people that I've been feeling hopeless. I feel, tell people that I want to curb stomp certain parties or certain individuals or whatever it could be. That's what heavy music is, man. And that's what got people like me and Dillon into the music. So with that in mind, that's been the journey so far. That's been the discography so far from your point of view, from your perspective, in your own words, for what Dead Awake is currently. I know you guys have a single coming out next week. Should we be expecting any sort of different creative approach to this next single and what is to come preceding that?
Yeah, absolutely. For anybody that knows us, I'm sure you feel this way too. We've never had a very distinct sound. We've been kind of like experimenting with different things. Like self-titled was all over the place just because we were kids. We had no idea what we were doing. We were just making music to make music. And then Melancholia and Semantics and stuff. Melancholia is all about the sad stuff, and we were really experimenting with the more mathy side of things and the more kind of technical aspect of our influences. And then Semantics was just fun, good old-fashioned metalcore, like modern metalcore stuff. And then Vile was on the side of like, I want to say like death metal influenced hardcore. And then this next collection of songs is literally just heavy. Like it is just ridiculous caveman riffs. Like for that single that we're dropping called Terminus, it's literally about killing and eating people just because we wrote a death metal track. And like I'm over here like I want to keep it real, and then I'm like, oh yeah, like here's a story about killing and eating people.
Like
yes. So that's what and I named it Terminus after The Walking Dead. I don't know if you ever watched it, but yeah, there's like look, the show's been out for years. If you haven't seen it, here, there's a spot where like people literally like lure people in and then kill them and eat them to stay alive, and that's what the place is called, is Terminus. So I just kind of thought that that's not to say that the other songs don't have like a real kind of like aspect to them, Just because like there are other ones, like we have a song on there called Turncoat. That's about somebody that I considered a really close friend that kind of like played both sides of the fence and just fed off of conflict and everything. And that's just kind of how I felt about the situation and shit. But it's definitely way heavier, way more death metal influence. And I think that's kind of the route that we're taking, just because we're very, me and Michael especially, and even Peyton, our drummer, he's gotten really out of his shell. He used to be like a deathcore elitist kind of guy. But now he's like listening. I got him into like technical death metal and like death metal and all these other like, he likes like pop music sometimes, like certain things that just, he's about the groove, he's about how like the music makes him feel. And he's like, yeah, we're all collectively kind of over the whole like gent metalcore, like almost, I want to say like almost Alpha Wolf style type stuff, which no
Right.
offense to Alpha Wolf, and I love all the bands that do that stuff. But we've been just kind of following that path for so long that we're just kind of like, we just want to write some ignorantly heavy shit and kind of go back to the roots. It's kind of the same way as like you mentioned earlier, the MySpace era deathcore, we kind of want to get in touch with those roots and like the death metal influence,
Ooh.
death metal back into deathcore kind of thing. Same with like
Ooh.
doing and everything. And we took a ton of inspiration from Tactosa with this because we saw this, like we saw how well perceived it was, because we've been wanting to do this for a while, and like bands like Dr. Acula coming back and like all of these bands coming back, like Job for a Cowboy, even. Fuck yes. Sidebar. So excited. Anyway, but yeah, it's nice to get back to our roots, and we just want to write heavy, fun shit. And we're going more on the death metal, like simpler side of things, just because it's what we like to play. Like we're kind of sick of the whole like all the time. Like we got our Tony Danza fill, we got our deathcore fill, and we're just gonna be playing some heavier shit, man. And yeah, it's just it's a definite like different creative approach. There's like a narrative song on there. Obviously Terminus is a narrative song too, because I don't actually kill and eat people. That's
right. I mean, I don't know, man. Like even with that in mind, do we have the same elf bar, bro?
I don't know if we do. Mine is
Sakura grape.
No, dude, I almost got that one. I got the watermelon Briz Ice instead, but the Sakura grape was like the one I was really looking into.
That's funny, man. Connections. Let's go, baby. Yeah. No, that's really cool. And like, dude, I didn't even realize how much music you guys have been releasing. It must have just not been in my recommendations or algorithm, because like really I only mentioned the self-titled album and Vile because those were the only two ones on the main Spotify page that I was noticing. But then you're like, mentioning what is some semantics and the Melancholia album, and I'm like, what the fuck? Why have I never heard of these? But now I gotta listen to them too. So basically, I'm going to be doing hella homework because this band, Dead Awake, is going to be doing some awesome things here in the near future, bringing it back to like, just thrashy, groovy death metal, which I'm hyped for, man. That should be really fun. And I mean, we have yet to hear Terminus. So here's to that. Cheers to that, man. And let's see. Are you guys going to be shooting for an orange like color theme with this next EP, or is the Terminus cover kind of like separate from the main image to distract and divert, maybe confuse?
So it'll be the orange color theme, like oranges and reds and everything. I don't know why, but we've always kind of found a way to like have a specific color theme with every album. like So like the EP originally was like pink and black and stuff like that. And then when we re-released it, it was blue. Then our self-titled was a lot of black and grays. So it was pretty much just black and gray. That was our color theme there. Let me see. Melancholia was green. Not entirely sure why, but it's just because like the promos in green and stuff. And like we had like the back of the actual jewel case is green. And we loved that. And then Semantics was red, and then this one's going to be orange, just because we like to stick with the color themes and everything like that. And we're big fans of orange. I like the merch you can make with that shit. Fantastic,
dude. So seriously, man, like orange is such a fun color, and it's like it's kind of a neutral color as well, because it's halfway between bold, like quick, fast, which fast food, right? Thinking about color theory and just diving a little bit into that. most fast food places, they have like red, blue, yellow, orange, or something of that similar nature to like kind of invoke a sense of hastening, just being fast, because that's what fast food is. It's supposed to be fast, we gotta get orders like 5 in a row, let's go. We gotta make money, all that fun stuff. But I think so far, looking at all of your album covers, Insurrectionist probably has to be my favorite one, just because it looks like a vaporwave album cover. I really like it.
Like, we love that album cover. Like, that's what the majority of like the OG fans, they like, that's their shit, is the Insurrectionist EP. And that's actually what like popped us off and got us our first record deal and everything like that and stuff. And there was somebody who sent us a picture. They actually got the skull that was like melting. They got that tattooed on their fucking hand.
Dude.
And I'm like, guest list for life, dude. That's like, what the fuck? That was so surreal, because like I have a Dead Awake tattoo, but I was like, I'm the only one because I'm in the band. And then this dude's like, nope, got my hand blasted. And I'm like, Jesus Christ.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, that is right now one of my favorite album covers. But the one for this next EP is like really cool. It's really like, we're really big fans of like liminal space and kind of like the OG horror feeling.
Yes.
So that's kind of like the look that we're taking, especially with like the Terminus video. It's supposed to be like a slasher, like lots of blood, lots of like killing and everything like that. So it's definitely a more horror themed kind of feel to it.
Explicit warning and all that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. Badass.
Yeah, I swear quite a bit.
You're good.
And yeah, I mean, the video's definitely like a trigger warning for anybody who's not a fan of like blood or fake blood or anything. Just listen to it when it hops on streaming services, because you won't want to watch the video, especially if anything like that, and which we respect and everything like that. So obviously, we don't want
to stream.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. If you don't like it, please don't watch it. We're not trying to anybody or anything like that. We've had some gory videos and everything in the past, and I always put that label on it, like, just be careful. Epilepsy warning on all of our videos as well, just because that's something that I don't fuck around with.
Right.
So yeah.
Fantastic, dude. And I mean, it's been really cool to see that more and more bands are becoming incredibly comfortable with doing like horror movie level gore and fake blood in their music videos. I'm like, holy shit, what's going on, dude? But I guess I answered my own question. They're becoming more comfortable with it, and maybe people are becoming more desensitized to that type of violence, but who knows,
Yeah, that's a whole nother theory.
Right. But this has been episode 45 of the Anatomy Podcast, featuring Dillon from Dead Awake, and their new single Terminus comes out next week, and they are behind the scenes gearing up for another effort, but that is not my business to disclose. Me and the boys have been talking about it, but there might be another session later this year with the boys concerning that next major effort. Until then, though, Dillon, thank you again for your time tonight. Thank you for telling your story, talking about Dead Awake. And as simple as that, ladies and gentlemen, you be sure to have a good night and follow us on Anchor. Please follow us on Spotify. No matter where you are in the world, baby, please tune in, answer the questions that we have provided. That way there's some sort of feedback, because it's kind of been a ghost town, bro. It's been a little bit disappointing, but also I need to work on my shit, so I completely understand. But tune in, ask questions, provide me any type of feedback, because that would be really cool. And Dillon, did you have anything else you were wanting to mention or plug?
Oh yeah, I was gonna plug my buddy Cody's band. He just changed the name of it, but I'll have to find it. I'll send it to you. But fuck that. Big, huge shout out to everybody who's been behind the scenes helping us out with everything. Total Deathcore has been great, just because our friend Matthew Redlin is actually joining their ranks and everything, and they've been helping us out like crazy. Huge shout out to everybody that's kind of been here since day one. I know it's been a wild ride. We've been bouncing around and everything, and we've been trying to be as consistent as possible, sending out all this new music and stuff. Bottom line is, we're not going anywhere. Love us or hate us, we're still the Cutthroat crew. We're still proud to be here, and we're still going to keep doing what we do. Feel free to express your opinions and everything. Another thing is just to remember to be yourself, because not everybody's going to respect it. Not everybody's going to like it, but they're going to have to respect it just because everybody's different. And if you feel like you're outcast because of who you are or what you write or anything like that, I guarantee you that there is a reason for it. Because as we established before, everything happens for a reason. Everything works out in the end. And if it doesn't work out, then it's not the end yet. Huge shout out to the Cutthroat crew. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Fantastic, man. Well, everybody, be sure to stay tuned because we will be doing a massive heap of episodes this next week, including what could be an in-person session tomorrow at the Big Team Battle Tour as they swing by Nashville. But thank you for tuning in and have a good night.